The sounds of barking dogs and the rising smoke from the kitchen chimneys drifted out from the inn beside the official road, merging with the sky and earth. This beautiful scene subtly carried the scent of the mundane world, yet it didn't feel out of place, as if it were meant to be this way. A few local dogs raised by the innkeeper were playing with each other, running back and forth along the official road, their tails wagging as they moved. They seemed to embody the spirit of the earth, the rhythm of daily life. But soon, the sound of galloping hooves came from afar, growing louder with each passing moment. Dust and dirt were stirred up at the end of the official road, forming a cloud of mist. Within that swirling dust, several fine horses sped by, carrying men dressed in brocade robes. Their faces were serious as they rode swiftly forward. As they drew closer, the few local dogs on the road whimpered, stepping aside to avoid the horses, causing them to veer away in the wind. Perhaps the horses were riding too fast, as the ground trembled slightly when they passed in front of the inn. The inn itself seemed to shake slightly along with the ground. This inn was rather simple, showing signs of age from the many years it had stood. As it shook, it made creaking noises, as if it could barely hold itself together. Inside, the sounds of startled guests could be heard from the second-floor rooms. It's fine. This old inn has been here for over 100 years. Every time fast horses pass by, it shakes like this. It won't collapse, a hoarse voice echoed within the inn. In the corner of the hall sat an old man in a coarse cloth shirt. He was holding a smoking pipe, and, after taking a slow drag, he spoke calmly. Across from him sat the young servant from last night, rolling his eyes. He threw a towel over his shoulder, grabbed a kettle of boiling water, and hurried upstairs, delivering hot water to each guest room. In the last room on the right on the second floor, a young man lay on the bed, fully clothed. The whole room was filled with the smell of alcohol. As the sound of the hooves passed and the room trembled slightly, the young man slowly opened his drowsy eyes. He sat up, holding his forehead with his right hand, looking around in confusion. Sigh, drinking too much. How did I drink so much? The young man, about 18 or 19 years old, had a tall, slender build and an ordinary face. There was an air of scholarly temperament about him. He looked at his situation with a wry smile, his head pounding. He supported himself on the edge of the bed, staggering slightly as he made his way to the table. He poured a cup of cool tea and drank it, feeling a little better. Looks like I need to remember in the future, never get drunk. Last night, I was nearly out of my mind. If I had met some bad people, losing my silver would be one thing, but losing my life. He sighed deeply, taking a few more sips of tea. At that moment, there was a knock on the door followed by the servant's voice. Hot water, would the guest like some? The young man quickly got up, but the sudden movement made his head spin again. He forced out, "Come in." The door creaked open, and the servant walked in with the kettle. After filling the water basin with hot water, he turned and looked at the young man with a smile. "I've worked here for 3 years and never seen anyone drink my family's rice wine and get so drunk after just 2 cups. Last night, no matter how I tried to push you, I couldn't wake you up, so I had to carry you here to rest. Little brother, your tolerance is quite low. You need to practice more. I've heard that the officials in the capital can drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk." The young man's face turned slightly red, his eyes showing gratitude. He stood and cupped his hands toward the servant, smiling. "Thank you for your care. I don't know what happened. I thought I was fine after the first cup, but after the second one, I just passed out right there." The servant grinned, grabbing his kettle as he prepared to leave. With a teasing look, he turned to the young man and said, "You're the scholar heading to the county for the imperial examination, right? Last night you kept telling me about a dream, how you became an immortal. Huh, it was funny. If you have time, tell me more. It's quite amusing." With a friendly laugh, the servant left the room. The young man blushed deeply, shaking his head with a bitter smile. After the servant left, he went to the water basin, splashed his face with hot water, and managed to wash away most of the drunkenness and fatigue from the previous night. He opened the window of the guest room. Along with the bright sunlight, a cool breeze flowed in. The wind felt refreshing against his face, and he exhaled a long breath. "Last night, after getting drunk, I really had a strange dream. I haven't forgotten it at all since I woke up." The young man stood by the window, gazing outside, murmuring to himself. The dream felt so real, it was almost impossible to tell the difference. It started 3 years ago when Uncle Four came, and I joined the Hunghua sect. It's quite amusing, but the dream seems to have been incomplete. I only remember joining the Hunghua sect, but nothing after that. Hunghua sect? How could such a sect exist in this world? Where did these immortals come from? As scholars, we don't believe in ghosts or divine powers. It's all just rumors used to fool the common people. The young man shook his head, turned around, and glanced at the teacup on the table behind him. Suddenly, a playful thought crossed his mind. He raised his right hand, formed a seal from his memory, and pointed at the teacup. Gravity manipulation art. The young man laughed heartily and pointed. The teacup remained motionless, calmly resting there. The young man chuckled again, muttering to himself, "These spells and powers are quite interesting." After playing for a while, the young man gathered his thoughts, tidied up his belongings, silver taels, dry rations, clothes, and books, then carefully cleaned the room. Once the scent of alcohol dissipated, he changed into a fresh set of clothes, strapped the bamboo bookcase to his back, and left the room. He had always been clever, but his nature was simple and honest, raised in a mountain village. This was his first time leaving home. Under the tender gaze of his parents, with their gentle admonitions, he stepped out of the village, like a fledgling bird ready to spread its wings and soar. The room had become messy and filled with the smell of alcohol because of him. He would rather clean up himself than ask the attendant who had brought him here to do it. In the lobby on the first floor, he quickly ate a little, settled his bill, and then smiled at the attendant with a fist salute. Stepping into the sunlight, he turned and left. The soft sunlight fell on him, making the young man seem filled with vitality. His clean clothes and neat attire gave him an energetic, refreshing aura, making anyone around him feel an instinctive liking for him. Especially with his tidy appearance, he exuded a youthful energy. Walking along the official road, he looked ahead, towards the invisible horizon at the end of the road. He could vaguely see, in the direction he was heading, the distant capital city of Zhao Kingdom. "Wang Lin, you can do it. When you top the imperial examination, I'll bring my parents out of the mountain village, take care of them in their old age, and let them enjoy the rest of their lives." The young man took a deep breath and took another step forward. The spring breeze gently brushed his face, bringing with it the fragrance of flowers and grass from who knows where. It fluttered his blue scholar's robe, creating a soft rustling sound as he walked, gradually leaving the inn behind. Only the faint sounds of a scholar's chant were carried by the wind, drifting off into the distance and slowly fading into nothingness. At 18 or 19, one usually doesn't know fatigue. Wang Lin walked along the official road, his eyes bright and lively. From time to time, he would stop and admire the surrounding mountains, looking quite comfortable. The day passed quickly, with Wang Lin's steady pace, occasionally stopping to admire his surroundings. The dense trees up ahead slowly gave way to reveal a winding blue river. The sound of the river's flow reached his ears. In Zhao Kingdom, several official roads run parallel to waterways, and this road Wang Lin was traveling on was one of them. To his left, the mountain range stretched far, while to his right, the meandering river flowed, with several boats drifting along. As time passed, the sky grew darker. Clouds gathered slowly in the distance, and a distant rumble of thunder echoed. Lightning flashed across the sky like silver snakes. The weather had been clear during the day, but before night fully fell, the clouds quickly gathered, turning dark and unpredictable. The distant green mountains had already darkened under the clouds, but thankfully, their color did not overshadow the mountains entirely. From afar, the mountains seemed to wrestle with the clouds. The peaks appeared to want to shatter the clouds, while the clouds seemed to want to devour the mountains, like a battle between dragons and tigers, creating a spectacular sight. At that moment, with the rumbling thunder, rain began to pour down. Wang Lin hurried over to a tree, took out a large oil umbrella from the bamboo bookcase on his back, and opened it. The umbrella was crafted by his father and could be folded for storage. When fully opened, it covered not only the bamboo bookcase but also his entire body. Holding the umbrella with his right hand, Wang Lin looked at the black mountains in the distance, where the dark clouds could not completely conceal them. He watched as the rain poured down, falling onto the earth, the trees, and the river, causing ripples on the water's surface, which then splashed onto the boats. There's an old saying, the black clouds have not yet hidden the mountains, while the white rain jumps like pearls into the boat. It's exactly as described. Wang Lin laughed heartily, reciting aloud, "You scholar, are you out of your mind? Seeing the rainwater drenching my family's boat, and still laughing like that, it really gets on my nerves." A crisp voice came from a boat very close to the shore along the river. On the boat's bow stood a beautiful young girl holding an umbrella. She looked exasperated, her eyes glaring as she pointed a slender finger at Wang Lin. Wang Lin froze, his laughter immediately stopping, and he scratched his head awkwardly. The girl's skin was like pink jade, her appearance exceptionally beautiful. Especially with her brows furrowed and eyes wide open, she exuded a kind of beauty that was captivating, compelling anyone to stare at her. At this moment, the rain came pouring down, splitting between the girl and Wang Lin, falling onto the river's surface in a dazzling spray of water droplets. Amidst the ripples and mist, the sky and water seemed to merge into one. Even the distant mountains no longer appeared dark. They were like an ink painting, faintly visible on the horizon. As he gazed at her, Wang Lin's face suddenly flushed. This was his first time leaving the mountain village, and he had never seen such a beautiful girl. Compared to the playmates back in his village, this girl seemed like a fairy, and they, mere mortals. The girl, who had originally looked quite vexed, saw Wang Lin staring at her in a daze, his face turning even redder. She couldn't help but giggle, her mood changing like the unpredictable weather. "Hey, bookworm, are you done staring?" The girl laughed, and her voice, as clear as a silver bell, echoed through the rain, reaching Wang Lin's ears. Wang Lin, his face even redder with the Buchshepard's aura, flushed down to his ears. Hearing her words, he quickly moved the umbrella to one side, cupped his hands in salute, and bowed. "Apologies, I was rude. I hope you won't mind, miss." The girl's laughter lingered in the air. As she watched Wang Lin's awkward expression, just about to speak, a soft and melodious voice came from inside the black canopy boat. "Junior sister." At the sound of the voice, the boat's curtain was lifted slightly, revealing a graceful woman's figure. As her face emerged, the rain seemed to momentarily stop. In that instant, among the endless droplets, her appearance appeared blurred in Wang Lin's gaze. She was dressed in purple robes, her eyes as bright as the moon. Her presence made the world seem to lose its color, as though she absorbed all the remaining light in the sky. In the gloom under the dark clouds, on the river, in the boat, and in the world, this woman was the only one that stood out. Her beauty was striking, but beneath it, there was a hint of sorrow in her brows. It was the kind of sorrow that seemed tired, hesitant, and full of pity, making anyone who saw her feel a ripple in their heart. She glared at the girl in green clothes. The girl in green laughed and stepped forward, grabbing the purple-clad woman's sleeve. She pointed to Wang Lin, who was standing by the riverbank under the rain, and her voice was as sweet as a nightingale's. "Senior sister, this scholar is quite annoying. First, he was so rude with his words, and now, his gaze is even bolder. But he's so dazed that it's almost amusing." The purple-clad woman smiled, her gaze lifting to the rain-soaked world, staring at Wang Lin under the shade of the trees at the riverside. After a moment, she seemed slightly taken aback. After scrutinizing him for a few seconds, her eyes revealed a flash of confusion. "I feel like I've seen him somewhere before." Wang Lin, now the focus of both women's attention, felt his face burn. He cleared his throat and quickly turned around to look at the distant dark mountains and ink-like clouds, trying to distract himself from his racing heartbeat. Wang Lin, you've read so many books, how can you be so foolish? They're just two girls you've met by chance. Once the rain stops, you should continue your journey," he told himself, taking a deep breath of the rain-drenched air and slowly calming down. The purple-clad woman looked at Wang Lin for a long while, and then spoke softly, her voice cutting through the rain, echoing in the surroundings. "This rain is continuous and might last through the night. Since we've met, why don't you come aboard to avoid the rain? You can rest at the next dock." Her words were soft, but they reached Wang Lin clearly through the curtain of rain. "This?" Wang Lin hesitated, looking up at the sky. It was dark, and the rain seemed unlikely to stop anytime soon. It could very well last all night. You still hesitate after we kindly offered you a place to shelter? Do you think we're going to eat you? The girl in green, seeing Wang Lin's hesitation, glared at him with her bright eyes. Junior sister. The purple-clad woman glanced at her with a helpless expression. Wang Lin forced a smile, nodded, and picked up his bamboo bookcase, slinging it over his back. Holding the umbrella, he stepped onto the muddy road and walked into the rain toward the boat. The ground was a mixture of mud and water, and each step left his feet caked in the slush, causing his clothes to stain. The road was slippery, and the rain seemed to make the earth even slicker. As he reached the riverbank, Wang Lin slipped. With a startled cry, his body lurched as though he was about to fall. A fragrant breeze wafted into Wang Lin's nostrils. As he fell, his body was supported by a delicate, fragile figure. It was the woman in purple. She lightly touched the ground with her feet, and her body floated upwards in a graceful arc, carrying Wang Lin onto the black canopy boat that was floating on the river. "Thank you, Mississippi." Wang Lin, standing on the boat, blushed deeply and repeatedly bowed. "No need for such courtesy, young master. Please, take a seat," the woman in purple said, releasing him and lightly smiling as she seated herself beside him. The girl in the green dress also closed her umbrella and sat next to the woman, sizing up Wang Lin. Wang Lin's heart pounded in his chest. He had never been so nervous in his life. In front of these two women, he set aside the bamboo backpack on his back and awkwardly sat down, sweat already beading on his forehead. "There's no need to be nervous, young master," the woman in purple said, noticing Wang Lin's unease. She smiled lightly and raised her right hand, using a fire starter to light a candle. The flickering flame quickly illuminated the black canopy, casting the three of them in its soft glow. The girl in the green dress looked at Wang Lin with growing curiosity, and her soft laughter made Wang Lin even more embarrassed. "I am Wang Lin. I thank both of you for allowing me to board the boat and seek shelter from the rain." Wang Lin took a deep breath and stood up, cupping his hands in a gesture of respect to the two women. The boat floated gently down the river, drifting through the rain. Although no water splashed into the canopy, the sound of raindrops on the roof, the patter on the wooden planks of the boat, and the rhythmic tapping of rain on the river's surface merged together, forming a beautiful symphony of spring rain. From a distance, as the sky darkened, the boat gradually disappeared into the rain curtain, faintly visible, with a single light inside the canopy casting a soft glow. In the chilly spring rain, there was an indescribable warmth. Wang Lin. Why do I feel like I've seen him somewhere before? Even his name seems so familiar. The woman in purple gazed at Wang Lin, and the confusion she had earlier subtly returned. "Huh, your name is Wang Lin? I feel like I've heard that name before." The girl in the green dress paused, then looked at Wang Lin carefully, a thoughtful expression appearing in her eyes. "Strange, I don't think I've met you before, nor have I heard that name," the girl in green said after thinking for a long time, shaking her head and smiling at Wang Lin. Her voice was melodious as she spoke. "I am Su Fei, and this is my senior sister, Zhou Rui. As for your name, perhaps you should ask her yourself." Su Fei winked, looking very cute. "Little girl Zhou Rui," the woman in purple spoke softly. Her eyes still held a trace of confusion. After Su Fei also recognized Wang Lin's name, she became even more uncertain. As time passed, a moon appeared in the rainy sky, occasionally visible through the gaps in the rolling dark clouds, only to quickly be covered again. The rain grew heavier, drowning out almost all other sounds. Periodic gusts of moist wind blew into the canopy, causing the candlelight to flicker. Wang Lin felt a chill, but the two women beside him seemed completely unaffected, as though they hadn't noticed the cold wind or the pouring rain. Looking through the gap in the curtain, everything outside was pitch black. As he looked, Wang Lin suddenly became drowsy. In the dark night, on the quiet river, it seemed as if only this black canopy boat remained in the world. The two stunning women inside gave him an unreal feeling. "You both address each other as sisters. Just now, Miss Zhou carried me through the air and onto the boat. You must be skilled martial artists," Wang Lin mumbled, his body cold, his vision blurry, as sleepiness began to overcome him. He leaned against the side of the boat, speaking in a daze. We are not martial artists, you bookworm. We are cultivators, immortals, came a faint voice, drifting to Wang Lin as he fell further into sleep, as though it were coming from a great distance. Faintly, he thought he heard someone mention Hunyua sect. Am I dreaming again? Wang Lin murmured. His eyes closed as he drifted into a deep sleep. The boat gently rocked, and even the candlelight flickered. The girl in the green dress looked at the sleeping Wang Lin in confusion. Senior sister, he's just a mortal. Why did you use magic to make him fall asleep? The woman in purple looked at Wang Lin's sleeping form, her gaze lingering for a long time before she softly replied. I've definitely met him before, but I just can't remember where. You also said his name was familiar. Wang Lin. Wang Lin. The girl in green furrowed her brows, her expression just as puzzled. After a long pause, the woman in purple shook her head and sighed. Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. Perhaps I met him in a past life. Past life. The girl in green laughed, standing up to look out at the dark sky. Senior sister, it's getting late. We need to meet with Wang Zhuo and the others. The sect leader has sensed golden light coming from the east and predicted that a mysterious treasure may appear. Many sects are likely to search for it, so we need to hurry. Even though we can't participate directly, witnessing it would be a good experience. Just as she was about to leave, the woman in purple hesitated for a moment. The girl in the green dress had already left the boat and was soaring in midair, using the gravity manipulation art to fly. Senior sister, let's go. The girl's voice drifted through the rain. Caught in hesitation, the woman in purple turned to look at Wang Lin, curled up in the corner of the black canopy, his body trembling faintly from the cold. She walked over quietly, tapped her storage pouch, and a thick coat appeared in her hand. Gently, she draped it over Wang Lin's body, then murmured in a barely audible voice. Could it really be from the previous life? She sighed softly, turning and leaving. The rain grew heavier. The sound of rain splashing in the river channel echoed. Amid the pitch-black sky and earth, the black canopy boat drifted alone, carrying a peculiar air, an aura of loneliness. The ripples on the water disturbed the boat's drifting path, and through the curtain of rain, the boat grew increasingly distant. Finally, swallowed by the endless solitude, it faded away into the point where the rain seemed to meet the sky. Only the faint light from the boat's interior flickered, still wavering in the darkness. From afar, the light's flicker made the boat seem like a lonely leaf adrift in a dream, slowly sailing toward the end of the dream, under the perpetual glow of the light. The sound of rain on the boat continued, but within the black canopy, Wang Lin slept soundly. The coat he wore carried a faint fragrance, which lingered in his nostrils and led him into a deep slumber. Su Fei, Senior Sister Zhou, Wang Zhuo, Wang Hao, Zhang Hu, Wang Lin muttered in his sleep. If the two women hadn't left, hearing these words would have surely startled them. But at this moment, they could no longer hear him. Wang Lin's dream seemed like another life. In it, he was back at Hunyua sect, seeing Su Fei and Senior Sister Zhou. On Hunyua Mountain, a white soaring bird flashed through his dream. After a long time, the faint candlelight in the night became a shadow, gradually extinguishing and blending into the darkness. By dawn, the rain had stopped. The sky gradually brightened, though the darkness had not fully receded, leaving the world still dim. This dimness seemed to reflect in one's mood, dulling it. The night's rain had raised the river's surface. Though it was hard to notice with the naked eye, the banks clearly showed the change. Rainwater had seeped into the earth, forming a large expanse of mud. From afar, a boat slowly floated toward the riverbank, caught by the current, drifting closer and closer. Finally, with a loud thud, the boat sank into the muddy bank, as if it had run aground and was stuck, unmoving. Inside the black canopy, as the boat halted, Wang Lin's head collided with the side of the boat. Wincing from the pain, he opened his eyes, confused, and looked around. Gradually, he recalled the events of the previous night, but when he looked around, the two women were already gone. The events of last night felt like a dream, and the figures of those two beautiful women lingered in Wang Lin's mind, not fading away. Was it just an illusion? Wang Lin couldn't tell. Looking down, he saw the coat, clearly belonging to one of the women, still draped over him, and he slowly became fully awake. But in his mind, aside from the images of the two women, there was also the vivid dream. In it, he had returned to Hunyue's sect, where he saw those two women again. This left Wang Lin utterly confused. The candle stand beside him had long since extinguished, leaving the black canopy in near darkness. After some time, Wang Lin silently leaned out of the black canopy and gazed at the dim sky. Everything around him appeared blurry, and the far distance was hard to make out. The wind blew gently, and with it, the fresh scent of wet earth filled his nostrils. He let out a deep breath. Could it really be that what one thinks about during the day, one dreams about at night? Wang Lin stood at the bow of the boat, the rain having stopped. In the quiet dawn, everything around him was still, so still it seemed as if he were the only person left in the world. As he gazed out, a feeling of loneliness slowly crept up on him. Even he himself didn't understand why, but in this silence, it spread throughout his body. He stared blankly at the dark sky ahead, the sensation of solitude growing stronger. The wind blew through his black hair, sending it fluttering behind him. His green robes were slightly wrinkled, and though the wind blew against them, it couldn't smooth out the creases. It's a bit cold. Wang Lin lowered his head, not understanding why. At this moment, the feeling of loneliness and emptiness was so intense. It made him vaguely miss home, his parents, and everything else. He also thought about a woman, whose memory seemed elusive. It felt as if an invisible force was gathering in the world around him, merging into his body, causing 2 lines of tears to slowly fall from his eyes. Why am I crying? Wang Lin raised his hand to wipe away a tear, and as he looked at the tear in his hand, which seemed like a raindrop, endless sadness and sorrow appeared in his eyes without him even noticing. Wang Lin was lost in thought, his head lowered, not paying attention to the traces of water left on the boat behind him. He sat down quietly, and in the stillness before dawn, tears slowly dripped down his face, blending into the water on the boat. In this vast world, it felt as though he was the only one left. This feeling stirred a familiar impression within him, as though, many times before, he had been alone, walking silently through the world, quietly savoring everything around him. In that solitude, he reflected on his own loneliness. Gradually, a sense of daze overtook Wang Lin. He vaguely saw a deep chasm, an abyss filled with an immense pull, strong enough to tear the sky down. Within the cliff walls, there was a crack, and sitting inside that crack was a solitary figure. It was also quiet there. Only the howling of the pull could be heard. The figure, with its back to him, was unseen, but Wang Lin could feel the loneliness and sadness emanating from its silhouette. In his haze, he saw a young man dressed in white, his white hair flowing over his shoulders, silently walking through a starry sky. His back, too, carried an air of solitude. He saw many things, and tears slowly fell from his eyes. The sorrow seemed to come from his very soul, as if it originated from this world itself, as though the world was his soul, as though all of this was his dream. In this dream, in the familiar silence and solitude, he found a lingering pain that remained here. Under the dim sky, Wang Lin sat in the black canopy boat, staring at the water's surface. Time passed, endlessly. It wasn't until a cold breeze blew across him, making him feel chilled, that he instinctively raised his left hand and pointed at a nearby candlestick. The flame flickered and slowly ignited. Wang Lin didn't even notice this moment. His eyes were filled with confusion and a sorrow he couldn't place. He gazed at the water, as if in eternal contemplation. In the silence and dim light, the flame of the candle gradually formed into a warm glow, surrounding him and flickering in the darkness. Despite its weakness, it emitted a sense of warmth, struggling to burn in this vast world. From a distance, the figure on the boat gradually appeared, silhouetted against the candlelight, exuding a sense of desolation. As time passed, the sky slowly began to brighten. The darkness from the sky, the earth, the river, and the boat all began to dissipate. Everything around became clearer, and the distant dark mountains started to show their greenish hue. Yet, the rolling black clouds in the sky remained, slowly moving across the horizon. A bird, as dark as ink, flew from the mountains, and with a sound that could almost be heard, it soared into the black clouds, piercing through them. Its wings flapped as it flew above the clouds, circling a few times before flying directly toward Wang Lin. The bird quickly drew near. Under the brightening sky, Wang Lin slowly raised his head and saw the white bird. It whizzed past him, seemingly glancing down at him. In its eyes, Wang Lin could sense a sorrow he could feel, and just as he froze in place, the bird slowly disappeared into the distance. As it vanished, the sorrow in Wang Lin's heart slowly faded. The candlelight on the boat gradually extinguished, returning to its original state. What is happening to me? Wang Lin seemed to awaken. He looked down at the tear hanging from his finger, the drop that had not yet fallen. Under his gaze, the crystal tear slowly dropped to the ground. After a long time, Wang Lin stood up, still confused, with an inexplicable sorrow lingering in his heart. He packed his belongings, folding the purple-clad woman's coat and placing it in his bookcase. He slung it over his shoulder and walked off the boat. As he stepped off, he turned back and glanced at the boat before walking forward, step by step. At that moment, a sudden, roaring sound erupted from the end of the rolling black clouds in the sky. The sound was deafening, and in an instant, Wang Lin instinctively looked up. What he saw was beyond belief. Two long rainbows, as if they could split the world in two, flashed across the clouds. One of the rainbows released ripples, and just as it passed over Wang Lin's head, it suddenly paused. The rainbow vanished, revealing a woman in blue, who looked down at Wang Lin, who was gazing up at the sky. The woman showed a hint of confusion in her eyes. "What's wrong, junior sister Lu?" Another rainbow faded, and a handsome young man stepped out. He looked gently at the woman and asked in a soft voice, "It's nothing. That scholar. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before." The woman gently shook her head, turning into a long rainbow as she flew off. "He's just a mortal. We should go join the sect and head to that place where the golden light is radiating." The young man glanced briefly at Wang Lin, then turned his gaze back to the woman as they left. Who is she? So familiar, so familiar." Wang Lin murmured, a strange sharp pain suddenly surfacing in his heart. This pain mingled with the sadness that had just faded, merging into a strange force that made his breath falter, his face turning pale in an instant. His body swayed, stepping back a few paces, his gaze fixed at the horizon, until it seemed to collapse. His right hand pressed against his chest, where the pain surged like a tide, engulfing him. In that indescribable agony, it felt as though his heart had been torn apart, and a sense of melancholy began to linger. All of this stemmed from the woman who had flown across the sky earlier. Her figure seemed to exist in Wang Lin's mind for countless years, but along with her image came a complex series of thoughts. After a long while, a faint color returned to Wang Lin's face. He gasped for breath, closing his eyes. So, there really are immortals. Then, was my dream truly just a dream? Wang Lin sank into silence, sitting on the damp earth after the rain. He stayed like that until the sky brightened completely, and when he opened his dazed eyes, he silently walked forward. Did I dream of an immortal, or did the immortal dream of me? Wang Lin couldn't make sense of it. It seemed that his life, altered completely after a drunken dream, had taken an entirely different path. As he walked back on the official road toward the county town, Wang Lin no longer enjoyed the scenery around him as he had before. Instead, he walked in silence. The bamboo bookcase he carried on his back swayed with his steps, creaking with each movement, accompanying him as he moved farther away. Morning broke, evening fell. Walking along the official road, stepping through puddles, Wang Lin walked the entire day. When he grew tired, he sat by the side of the road and took out dry rations from his bamboo pack, eating and resting for a while before continuing on his journey. The sounds of horses' hooves and carriage wheels sometimes came from behind him. Every time these sounds grew louder, Wang Lin would step aside, waiting for the carriages or horses to pass quickly before resuming his journey. 7 days passed in a blink of an eye. During this time, Wang Lin's weak body began to slowly regain some strength. He walked at dawn and rested at dusk. If he could find an inn along the way, that would be the best. Alternatively, if he could spot a village with cooking smoke rising at dusk, staying there for the night would be even more comforting than staying at an inn. But most of the time, at dusk, Wang Lin would feel the illusion that the world had left him alone, a deep solitude. He would find a few trees by the roadside to rest under, covering himself with his thick clothes, counting the stars in the sky. Beneath the twinkling lights, he thought of the warmth of home, of his parents' gentle smiles, and slowly fell asleep. The fire he had built flickered and gradually died down, and a wisp of smoke rose, merging with the sky. The night wind, cold as it was, would often wake Wang Lin. Each time he woke, he would silently gaze into the darkness. This darkness, rather than frightening him, felt familiar. In that pitch-black night, his heart felt as calm as still water. He would pull his thick coat tighter around him and drift back to sleep. At this time of year, Zhao Kingdom was in its rainy season. Even when the rain stopped, the sky remained heavily clouded, with occasional thunder echoing. After half a day, the rain would often return, washing the earth once more. On the 8th day, at dusk, Wang Lin trudged forward with an umbrella, a bitter smile on his face. Outside, the heavy rain poured down, thunder and lightning howling. Though it was only dusk, the world had already darkened. Just one more day's journey to the county town, but this rain keeps getting heavier. Moisture spread across the ground, and every time a raindrop splashed onto Wang Lin, his green clothes were soaked through, sticking to his body and drawing away his body heat, making him feel cold. Especially when the damp wind blew, it seemed to penetrate to the bone. Wang Lin shuddered, and half of the umbrella was placed on the bamboo bookcase on his back, protecting the books, dry rations, and spare clothes from getting wet. Walking quickly through the accumulated rain, Wang Lin searched for shelter, his eyes scanning through the rain for a place to take refuge. In the distance, he saw a vague outline, something like a house. Without pausing to examine it more closely, Wang Lin hurried toward it with the umbrella. As he got closer, the outline became clearer. It was an abandoned earth god temple. Creaking sounds echoed in the rainy night, carrying an eerie feeling. The temple wasn't large and appeared to be in a dilapidated state. Its 2 doors were worn, one shut. The red paint on them had long faded to a dark color, and the door ring was rusted, with rainwater collecting around it, dripping steadily. The other temple door was severely damaged, barely hanging by its frame, unable to close. Instead, it swayed continuously in the wind and rain, creaking loudly, the sound Wang Lin had heard earlier, carrying far away. As the storm intensified, the half-open door shook even more violently, as though it might be torn from its frame by the wind. Wang Lin hurried forward, glancing at the temple before stepping inside. The temple courtyard was littered with rubble and overgrown grass. The plants bent under the weight of the storm, swaying urgently in the heavy rain, producing a rustling sound. A thunderclap roared, followed by a flash of lightning that lit up the sky, allowing Wang Lin to see everything in the temple clearly. He gasped and instinctively took several steps back. Near the edge of the courtyard, he saw a few white bones. His heart raced as he turned pale, but the rain was coming down harder. Gritting his teeth, he chose not to focus on the long-dead skeletons and made his way into the main hall of the temple. At the far end of the hall stood a statue of the earth deity, several yards tall. Its face was unclear, but it was evident that the paint had long faded, the figure worn and decayed. Water had pooled inside the hall, as the roof tiles had cracked in several places, allowing rainwater to pour in and leave large puddles on the floor. An eerie atmosphere hung in the temple. Wang Lin took a deep breath, his face pale. He bowed to the earth deity statue, then found a dry spot in the hall to set down his bamboo backpack and sat down. He pulled out some dry branches he'd collected earlier when the rain had stopped and attempted to light them with a fire starter. Perhaps the branches weren't fully dry, as they still had some moisture. Wang Lin tried several times, but the fire wouldn't catch. His body trembled from the cold as he fumbled with his hands to try again. Suddenly, a thunderous roar erupted in the temple, the booming sound making Wang Lin's hands shake. In that moment, when lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the world, a massive shadow loomed around him. Who? Wang Lin abruptly looked up, forcing himself to suppress his panic, his gaze fixed on the temple's entrance. His voice was loud, nearly a shout, and in the quiet of the stormy night, just as the thunder faded, it startled the man who had just stepped inside the temple. The man shuddered and staggered back several steps, almost falling. When he vaguely saw Wang Lin in the temple, he let out a long sigh of relief, quickly stepping forward and glaring at Wang Lin. He slapped his chest with a loud thump and shouted at Wang Lin. You scared me. Wang Lin froze for a moment, giving a wry smile and sighing in relief. He cupped his hands in apology and said, It's dark, hard to see. The lightning came too suddenly. Please, don't take offense, brother. The man grunted, muttered a few words, and then ignored Wang Lin. He sat down on a nearby spot, pulled something wet from his coat, and began nibbling on a half-eaten chicken leg, sobbing uncontrollably. His cries echoed through the rainstorm, chilling Wang Lin to the bone. He shifted away slightly and managed to get a spark from the fire starter, causing the kindling to catch fire with a loud crack. As the fire blazed, the flickering light illuminated the temple, allowing Wang Lin to see it more clearly. The man continued crying, biting into the chicken leg, but then, bizarrely, broke into laughter. His laughter rang out, and Wang Lin stared, momentarily dumbfounded. He's insane. Wang Lin shifted away again. If it weren't for the heavy rain outside, he would have left this eerie, desolate place. Despite being on the official road, the sudden appearance of such a madman in this remote area on a stormy night was unsettling. The man laughed for a while, then broke down into tears again. Nobody cares about me anymore. I can't remember who I am. His sobs filled the temple, and gradually, Wang Lin felt a surge of pity. He turned to look at the madman, sighing deeply. Life, like a dream when unawakened. Who am I in this play of life? Is life death, and death life? Or perhaps, dreams are death, and waking is life. In the instant of closing or opening one's eyes, life and death merge, and truth and illusion blur. Wang Lin murmured, his eyes clouded with confusion. The dreams he'd been having these past few days seemed to convey an unclear thought, one that he vaguely felt during his silent reflections over the last 7 days. With a sigh, Wang Lin reached into his bamboo backpack and pulled out some dry rations. He stared at the fire in front of him, listening to the sound of rain pouring outside, and quietly began to eat. The rain of heaven gently fell, covering the mountains, the land, and the temple. Inside the temple, beside the firelight, two dreamlike souls, seemingly out of place, met. One gazed at the firelight, the other gnawed on a chicken leg. Between them, the earth deity statue, illuminated by the flames, remained with an enigmatic smile at the corner of its mouth, as if gazing at them eternally.